So you want to buy a cinema. Most people think owning a movie theater means buying a building, installing some screens, and selling tickets and popcorn. That's roughly true, except before any of that pencils out, you need to understand something almost nobody outside the industry knows. You don't actually make money selling movie tickets. We'll get to that. First, the price of entry.
Building a new multiplex from scratch runs somewhere between $400 and $500 a square foot. A standard 10-screen complex needs about 45,000 square feet, which puts construction alone north of $18 million before you've bought a single seat. Add land, which typically eats another 10 to 20% of the total budget, anywhere from $1 to $5 million depending on the market. Then the equipment. A single DCI-compliant digital projector, the kind required to legally screen a first-run studio release, costs $50,000 to $100,000 per screen. Multiply that across 10 auditoriums, and the projectors alone can cost as much as the land.
Now, you might be wondering, is there a faster and cheaper way in? There is, and it's exactly how most independent operators actually get into this business. Instead of building new, you buy something that already exists. In one recent listing, a fully operating drive-in theater, 5 acres, 2 concession buildings, a working projection booth, and 300 parking spaces sold for $500,000.
That's roughly 1/40th the cost of building a new multiplex, and you inherit a customer base, a liquor license in some cases, and zero construction risk. The trade-off is obvious. An existing single screen or drive-in caps how much you can ever make. You're not competing for the opening weekend of the next blockbuster. You're the $3 ticket second-run alternative down the street. But construction and acquisition are only half the business. The other half is what happens once someone actually buys a ticket.
Here's the part that surprises almost everyone. On a brand new blockbuster's opening weekend, the studio can take close to 100% of the ticket revenue. Not a cut, close to all of it. That percentage slides in the theater's favor over the following weeks as the film ages. But in week 1, on the movie everyone's lining up for, you are, in effect, running the show for free. Every dollar from that ticket goes straight back to the studio that made the film. Which means the actual business of running a cinema was never the movie. It's the popcorn. Food and beverage margins in this industry regularly run 80 to 90% because a cup that costs cents to fill sells for $8. And that markup is the only real profit most theaters ever see. A theater can sell out every seat in the house and still lose money on the film itself. It only turns a profit once the concession line moves.
In 2018, Cineworld, a British company, bought Regal Cinemas, at the time the second largest chain in America, for $3.6 billion. It was an aggressive, debt-funded bet that scale would win the exhibition business. Then the pandemic shut every theater in the country for months, while the company's debt kept accruing regardless. By 2022, Cineworld was carrying nearly $5 billion in net debt, almost $9 billion once you count its theater leases. On September 7, 2022, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Texas, needing $1.94 billion in emergency financing just to keep the lights on and the popcorn machines running during the restructuring. CEO Mookie Greidinger called it an incredibly difficult time for the business. It was also, in hindsight, an incredibly predictable one. A company had borrowed $3.6 billion to buy a business whose core product, the movie ticket, was never designed to generate much profit in the first place. There are a few rules that separate the operators who survive from the ones who end up like Cineworld. First, never let your ticket revenue carry the balance sheet. If concessions and premium formats aren't your primary profit engine, the business model is already upside down. Second, be careful how much debt you take on to buy scale. Cineworld didn't collapse because people stopped going to the movies. It collapsed because it had borrowed billions against a business that, even in a good year, runs on thin margins. Third, watch what's happening at your own concession stand. Roughly 60% of inventory losses across retail and hospitality businesses come from employees, not outside theft, and concessions are one of the easiest places to skim from. A stand that quietly underrings free refills or voids transactions after the cash is already in the drawer can bleed a theater's only real profit center dry, one bucket of popcorn at a time, while ticket sales on paper look completely normal. Time to pull it together and answer the actual question. How much money do you make if you do this right? Let's run the math on two realistic versions of your cinema. Option 1. You buy the drive-in or small independent theater for around $500,000. Ticket margins stay thin, but you own the concession stand outright. No studio splitting your popcorn revenue. A well-run single-screen or drive-in can net $50,000 to $150,000 a year once local demand stabilizes, mostly from concessions and a loyal regular crowd who'll never set foot in an $18 first-run multiplex downtown. Option 2, you build or buy into a modern multiplex, the $18 million plus version, in a strong location with premium formats and a real food and beverage program. A well-run multiplex can clear several $100,000 to low millions in annual profit. But you're now competing directly with chains that have studio relationships, loyalty programs, and enough scale to survive a bad quarter. It's the same math that broke Cineworld, run correctly instead of on borrowed money. Either way, the lesson is the same one the entire industry learned the hard way over the last decade. Nobody gets rich selling movie tickets. You get rich selling everything around them.